something special.
Hi, friends. Welcome back or welcome to Friends in High Places podcast.
Hi, friends.
I got Thomi back on the pod today, and I'm super stoked. How's it going, dude?
Oh, not too bad. How are you doing?
I'm good. Just kind of chilling, and yeah, nothing too crazy new with me. How about you?
It's finally spring. It's like you can feel it in the air. It's the best feeling ever. I know you can't relate because it's always spring in Vancouver, but here in Calgary, it means something.
Yeah. No, it's been nicer weather over there. Hey, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So Thomi and I were chatting. This probably would have been about a week ago. Yeah. And it was actually on International Women's Day. And we were talking about the Britney Spears documentary that the New York Times put out, Framing Britney. And we thought it'd be pretty cool to do an episode based on like what we thought about it, maybe do some research on it. And so we both decided to watch it and do an episode based on what's going on with Britney and the Free Britney movement, because it's pretty fucking crazy and it's being really talked about right now. It's quite a hot topic, and it's International Women's Month. So I feel like it's a great month to chat about this. So yeah, we both agreed that we thought an episode on it would be fucking awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, and like I hope by now that people at least know what's going on even before watching, like at least have an idea, because people have been talking about this for a couple of years now. And one thing I'll say before we start talking about it is like, I think something that it does do is like kind of highlight that there needs to be change when it comes to how like disabled and handicapped people are treated under the law and under like you know what I mean, like and I'm not saying that she's handicapped or disabled, but this is all interrelated. Like Britney Spears is a woman with incredible privilege, incredible wealth, and this is what she's going through, and people are knowing that it's happening, they're seeing it happening, and like I just can't imagine for the people who don't have that type of like publicity and what they're going through, because this happens all the time, and that's really, really sad.
That's a really good point. It is really sad, and I never really thought about it from that end of things. That's for sure. Like, that's so true. There's so many people out there who don't have a voice in a sense for themselves, and let alone like that attention, like, cause she, like you were saying, she had a lot of attention on her and was in the public eye and everything like that. But yeah, definitely. That's a really good point.
So to back up though, I mean, in case anybody doesn't know, Britney Spears is under a conservatorship, which is kind of similar, I guess, like to what we would call here kind of a power of attorney in a way. Like, we don't have necessarily conservatorships. To my understanding, that's kind of something that California does, like mostly they call it the conservatorship. So even other places in the States don't have that particular language. Right. But and it's her dad, and he's the one who's controlling everything, and that's kind of like what's everything.
Everything. I have some notes.
So we both watched that. And then you went and watched something else that, like, the New York Times version only went into this, like, just over an hour. So they just scratched the surface of kind of what's been going on. And, like, people have been dedicating their lives and time and resources to figuring this out. And that's one thing, like, Britney Spears was, like, super, super loved. Like, she was a huge, huge star. And that one was kind of something that really stood out to me watching that episode too, was just like how dedicated her fans are, and how some of them are like really dedicating themselves to this movement and this like conversation because they just love her so much. And 100%. She was really, I think like quote unquote, like the gays, they love Britney, right? Like she really kind of like was like a new icon to like those people. And a lot of people felt like they could be themselves and be seen. And I think it's important to kind of understand like what she did to the culture and why this is being talked about even so much now, because of how important she was to culture and to people. And I think that's also why like people are really upset about it, because she did so much for them, for them, and now they feel like they need to repay that, right? And
yes,
I understand that line of thinking. Like it's you feel helpless when somebody that you love and admire is in the position. You can't do anything about it.
100%. Yeah, I agree. So a couple notes that I took down about what a conservator of a person, like a little definition of what it is. If, some of you listening don't know, it means they have control over the person, the conservatees, healthcare, meals, clothing, personal care, housekeeping, transportation, recreation. And then
so literally
also,
everything.
Literally everything. Everything they do.
They all vary too. So like someone could just have one about their finances and specify, but as far as people know, Britney Spears is like literally everything.
Yeah, so her father also is a conservator of her estate. And so what that means is, well, okay, so that actually changed. We'll get to that. We'll go through it. But anyways, what that means is, yes, he manages her finances, has control of her assets, collects conservatees' income, pays conservatees' bills, invests conservatees' money, protect conservatees' assets, manage budget, and they have an allowance. So gets to manage and budget their money and give their money out to them as they decide. And it's super fucked up because we watched the Framing Britney documentary, and then I found the YouTube series. I didn't know it was a thing, and has been a thing for 6-7 months. They've put out this series. It's called Deep Dive, and it's called Free Britney. And so I found this when I was actually doing research on the Framing Britney documentary. And sorry, I'm losing my train of thought here. And it goes way, way more into detail about like what was happening behind the scenes. Just has more footage, more time. They had more time. The documentary was only an hour, so they could only kind of put show light, exactly. So I started watching this YouTube series, and it was just like so fucking crazy. Like, it's honestly like my mind is still blown. And so when I was watching this, it was bringing up the definition of a conservatorship, and it said usually people who get this are elderly. They need a conservator. And it's just somebody who can't take care of themselves, who can't make their own decisions. And it's just really fucked up because even at her lowest point, in my opinion, she did not need this to happen. And there's probably going to be a lot of people that disagree with me. Thomi may even disagree with me, because what we were shown in the media and what we were shown then, and even kind of now, even in the documentary, she was going out and partying, and like maybe even Thomi and I talked about, maybe she was fucking spending her money crazy because she was young and had all this money and stuff. But still, in my opinion, I do not think this should have happened, not even temporarily. And because that's how it started out. It started out as a temporary conservatorship. And then it led to be a full-on
because it's a lot easier to just get temporary at first.
Exactly. And that's
emergency, I think, is what they called it at first. It was an emergency, and then it became permanent. And it always has to be renewed every, 5 years or something like that, too.
Yes. And it's just it's just super fucked up how much, and that's something else we'll get into as we get more into it, but how much of her rights got taken away before even this was legally a thing, like before the papers were signed that he had the conservatorship, is dude, it's fucking crazy. Her family literally trapped her into this. And that's something I learned on the YouTube series, and we'll get into that. But I was reading this magazine's notes and input on the documentary, and it's called The Gate Entertainment Magazine. And they said, best viewed as a painful, empathetic examination of someone who has been repeatedly kicked while down. And I was like, fuck yeah.
Yeah.
Like literally, because she could not win from the moment she became huge, because at the beginning of her career, she was like this sex symbol, and everyone always wanted to talk about her virginity and her sexuality, and that she was
a
wearing
bad role model.
Exactly, wearing these skimpy clothes, and like so many young girls and boys too watched her and wanted to be her and whatever, and she put on this really bad role model, and it's just like, it's crazy.
I think part of that also had to do with where music was at that time too. Like,
true,
pop music was looked down upon so much. Like it still is, but at that time it was kind of like that, like rock, like grunge kind of movement in the 90s, and like a lot of people unfortunately kind of like have that attitude of like, oh, if that's not real music, those aren't real musicians. Like you have to write your own music and perform your own like music, and if you don't, you're not a real musician. And I think then when she came in and literally took the world by storm, that there were a lot of people who were really condescending about it as well, and just like thought like she's just a part of the machine. And like, I'm not denying that that is a thing, that they have like pop stars that are just like molded and they just choose someone, but like she was talented, like, and they didn't know. Like I really have a hard time with that, because she really pulled pop music to its forefront in that time period, and all the labels and all the money in the world wouldn't have known that that's exactly what was going to happen. So I don't think that they literally just like chose her off the streets and had this big grand scheme of how they were going to make like a pop star. Like I think it just kind of like was a bit of like everything. Like, yes, they did plan a lot of things for sure, but like she actually did have like talent, and she talks about it too, and like they have clips in the documentary about how she was saying like no, I'm in control of my career, I'm the one who makes the decisions, I'm the one who reads the contracts, like I know what's going on here. And everybody wants to make it seem like, oh, that girl, she doesn't even know, she's just, you know, they tell her what songs to sing and that's all. But it's like, no, like she was choosing the songs, like she knew, because she had a dancing background, like that beat's gonna be it, I can dance to this, like her choreographers helped her with that. Like she was smarter than just being somebody who just literally was given a song and then told to sing it. 100%. And it just really sucks, because that's where a lot of that like bad narrative came at her too, was like people were like personally offended or something, like because it wasn't as pretentious as they wanted it to be.
Because she was a fucking strong, talented, smart woman. And like that is something that a lot of people are intimidated by even today, but especially back then. And she, I guess, even in a sense, came off as kind of like that, like Barbie doll. Okay, she just gets on stage and sings and does what she's told. But even in that Framing Britney documentary, the background dancer was like, she fucking like chose us. She told us what to do. She like choreographed all of like a lot of the dancing and the performing, and she was there working with us for hours and hours and hours. She didn't just like learn her little part and get on stage and just sing and let us fucking do all the work and get told by somebody else what to do. Like she was a part of it all. And then even on top of it, she said too, she's like, and same with my outfits, I do the same thing. Like everyone's telling me to wear certain things. And I'm like, nope, take it off. I want the less is better. And that's because I have control. I have control of what I wear, how I dance, what I sing, like all of that. And that was like at the beginning of her career, when she did have control, when she got to be who she wanted to be and be her own person and like live this life how she wanted to live it. And then as the documentary goes on, as even this YouTube series goes on, you just see her fucking like her light fade, because she's being so destroyed by her fucking family, her dad, and then destroyed by the fucking media, just sitting there constantly trying to find any reason to fucking slut shame her, to say that she, like, to just, like, exploit her, to, like, it's just, like, degrade her. It's so crazy and so sad, and she was so young.
She was so young. And that's what we forgot about. Like, because we were younger than her. And like, when you're that young, you feel like people who are older than they are. So like, she was just a few years older than us. But to me, it was like, 19 years old or 22 or whatever it was. It felt so much older. And then now that we've lived through that, like, I just can't even believe it. And like, like 23 years old, divorced twice with 2 children. Yeah. Who wouldn't have a breakdown after that?
Plus,
like,
seriously, paparazzi literally at your fucking everywhere.
It was
everywhere.
Horrible.
At your doorstep, surrounding your car, fucking literally everywhere, surrounding, suffocating you. Like, watching that footage. And this is the thing that the YouTube series kind of shows a bit more, is of the paparazzi stuff. Because again, the New York Times one only had so much time to put all this shit into it. So you did get to see some of the paparazzi stuff. But like, this YouTube series gets even more in depth of it. Like, I felt fucking suffocated for her watching how much these paparazzis just like fucking drowned her, like literally surround her vehicle and just fucking like put a camera right up to all windows in her vehicle, getting any fucking shot they possibly could. And it was just like, I couldn't.
It's
dude,
insane. It's insane. And that was like the peak of that. Like, it got better since then, and it wasn't as bad before that. Yeah. And I hate when people will say like, "Oh, you chose that life. You decided to become into the public life." Nobody fucking chooses that, for one thing. And secondly, it wasn't like that when she became a star either. It's not like, even if that is a choice one makes, she didn't have that choice, because it was literally her who created that. And like, we lived through it, and not even to get into how damaging that time period was for kids, for women, for boys, whoever, girls and boys. But just like the weight comments, if it wasn't about Britney having a meltdown, it was like, this star's too skinny. Nicole Richie, she lost too much weight. But then a month ago you were saying she had too much cellulite on the beach. Like, it was so freaking bad. And like, we grew up in that. Like, I don't even know what kind of damage that made on people of our generation, because we thought that was okay. Exactly. Like, it's not.
Exactly. And there wasn't fucking social media back then for them to have their voice. There wasn't anything back then for them to really show, like, speak their voice, unless they wrote into a fucking
like did an op-ed and an essay into like a New York Times or something like that.
But then those publishers still have the fucking control over what is said. They can take shit out. They can put shit in, like, 100%. So even then, they didn't have a full-on voice to talk about and defend themselves. And it's just like, it's so crazy just to like look back. And again, because we were so young, like you and I were talking about this, like, I just never really thought about it because I was young. And so I unfortunately was one of the people that in 2007, Britney Spears had a meltdown. I was a huge fan of her. I fucking love, and I still love Britney Spears. But when that happened, I was like, oh, she's going off the wall. She's crazy. Okay. And then turned my back to it and wasn't like thinking about what else is going on with her.
Part and of the it. Humanity. There's two sides to every story.
Exactly. And
exactly.
Like, whatever.
We were told how to feel about it because that's how the media was talking about it. And honestly, I think part of it, like, I was too young to even really have the like critical thinking to even think farther into it, to be honest.
Sure,
like, I didn't even think about it. Like, even though it's, I don't know. And they say that in the documentary too, like, people weren't talking about mental health at the time. Like, even though she might have had like this breakdown, nobody was even talking about that being a possibility. And like, and how fucking dare the media be the ones who put her in that position and then turn their backs on her and then make it and spin it into their own narrative. And that's the part that's so fucking gross.
Oh my God,
and you see it on the guy, the paparazzo that they interview in that fucking thing. And the guy, the cognitive dissonance on this guy, like he's trying to come across like it's like he's sympathetic to her, and you can kind of tell that maybe he's sort of kind of seeing it. But then they're like, okay, so what about like, why didn't you stop? And he's like, well, she never told us to stop. And they're like, what about when she was so saying, stop, leave me alone? Like, he literally had to convince himself that that wasn't a thing, because 100%. Otherwise, how could you do it, right? Like, 100%. I don't know. Those people are so skeevy, but like, ugh.
And that's what he said, too, was she was so nice. She'd always say hi to us. She wanted us to be there, and she was so sweet to us. She was always waving to us. Yeah, exactly. It's like, okay, because she was a nice person, what else was she going to do? Tell you guys to go fuck yourself, so then you guys would, like, maybe threaten her, or like she was probably scared too at the same time, like, and at the beginning of her career probably loving it too, because I'm fucking working my ass off to be the biggest fucking pop star, so look at all the paparazzi, look at all this attention, that's what I'm wanting, that's what, you know,
and it did help to a point to get her to that big part, but like no amount of like continued coverage, like nobody needs to live through that. It's disgusting. And even if she had said something, like I'll see it sometimes even now, like somebody might flip off the cameras, and then that becomes a story, and then it's like, look how rude they are, and they're so classless, like they just flipped off the cameras. So again, you're doing this to the people who have the ability to spin the story the way that they want to. So even if she had told everybody like fuck off, like then they would have been like, oh, Britney's crazy in that way too. Exactly. She lost it. She's rude. She has no like, where's that Southern hospitality when you need it or something, you know, like it's just it's disgusting. And that's why it is kind of a issue that's more relevant about women, unfortunately. Like, I'm not saying that men don't go through it, but it's that thing about women always having to please everyone all the time. And like how that's kind of
actually in this the Gate Entertainment thing that I was reading, they had a little blurb that said framing Britney Spears as an exceptional job of showing the inherent difference between men and women that are placed in the public eye. Male superstars like Sean Penn and Alec Baldwin can punch as many photographers and media hounds as they want because they were defending themselves from unwanted attention. A bald-headed Britney Spears swings an umbrella in a gas station parking lot, and suddenly she's a public menace. Not once did anyone in the media question her actions, if her actions were cry for help or the result of being thrust into a toxic environment. There's this natural assumption that celebrities are perfect, people whose lives are completely together, neglecting to realize that fame comes with a lot of stress and unwanted scrutiny. There had to be a reason for her sudden change, and many assumed that it had to be the fault of Spears herself. And it's just like so true, like 100% true of what you're saying. Like, females always have to be the nice ones. We can't sit there and stand up for ourselves, because if we do, then we're a fucking bitch. Then we're rude, then we've gone, then we're crazy, then we're psycho. And it's just like so fucked up. And
and men go through it too. Just like a quick side note, did you see what Jonah Hill posted a couple weeks ago on Instagram?
No.
He posted a headline from the Daily Mail, which is like the biggest trash site in the world. But they took pictures of him, and he was like in a wetsuit going like surfing, swimming, whatever. And they're like talking about, I don't even know. They weren't even necessarily saying that he was like overweight or commenting, but still they were highlighting his body. And so he just talked about his journey, about like how he like he's like, I'm seeing this now and I'm actually able to accept it. But like, you don't know what it was like to grow up in the media and every storyline being about how I was fat and overweight and all this other shit, right? Like, and it just made me kind of sad, because like, we're not saying that men don't go through it, obviously, but they don't go through it as much. But that is a good example of him, and how it was always about his weight loss, or whether he gained weight again, and this and that. And it's like, fuck, like, just let people it drives me crazy. It seriously drives me crazy.
It's so crazy, and it's so sad and so fucked up. And Jonah Hill is a really good example of somebody who had to struggle through that from being young as well, because he was so young in fucking Superbad, and then what was the other one? Accepted.
He was really young.
He was so young, and like
and that is all that people talked about, like when it came to his name, was like And then when he'd lose weight for a role, and then the bouncing back and forth, and like the pressure that you would be under then to keep the weight off. Like we talked about this, we're getting kind of off track here, but Rebel Wilson just lost quite a bit of weight, or like Adele just lost quite a bit of weight, and how like I'm always seeing on my Explore page before and after, what do you prefer? Look at this beautiful transformation by this person. And just like how I would not want people to even be commenting on it. Like you can say, congratulations, I see that you really worked hard, good for you. But why does it have to be this whole big thing? And then the pressure then to be always keep it off. And if you don't, then people are going to be like, what went wrong? Did you lose your mind? Like, were you stressed out? Like, I don't even know. Like, it's just leave people fucking alone.
Yeah, like, exactly. Like, it's so fucked up. And there's no need for comparison of the before and after. Like, if someone has made progress in their weight loss or even weight gain, fucking good for you. You look great is all you need to say. That's it. Like, it's just so fucked up and so wrong. And then again, like being young in the spotlight, like Britney Spears, 16 years old is when she fucking did Baby One More Time.
Yeah.
Yeah. And like,
and then all of a sudden, and that's young. That is so young.
That is so fucking young. That is so young. Like you're in fucking grade 10 when you're 16 years old, going into grade 11. Like that is crazy. Like crazy.
Yes.
And then on top of it all, having the media talk about your body, your fucking breasts, your weight, your sexuality, whether you're a virgin
whether or
not
you've had sex.
Yeah.
Yeah, seriously.
Like,
and that it was kind of a weird time for that too. And that is, I'm not, because before how I was saying like, she was in control of her whole career. I'm sure she was, but I think that they did also market her that way. Like they did market her in a certain way that was supposed to be a bit older and mature and more sexual. And like, that's fine. That like good for her if that's what she wanted to do. But that was kind of new at the time. Like when I was watching that, I was just really noticing that like we wouldn't be having a lot of those conversations now. Like if there was a new pop star who was wearing like a top that showed her belly, like we wouldn't be sitting there going, I just hate Britney Spears. She ruins it for children. Like so that's one thing that she really changed for what we're going through now in our lives too, and like how culture goes, is because she kind of made it okay to start dressing a little bit more sexy, I guess you could say. Like it's just I don't even know why people get involved in things that don't fucking matter. Like, and that was also the purity movement, like, and it was all about virginity, and everybody had purity rings, and everyone, like Jessica Simpson was a preacher's daughter, you know, like everyone in the public eye was talking about being a virgin and not having sex. And it's like, that's just really not the way to go about teaching morals to the kids. Like, you know, like
exactly 100%. And I was actually thinking about this a lot the last couple days, about how if today somebody posts, like, fucking look at Instagram. Like, it's you don't fucking bat an eye if you see a girl fucking post a picture in a crop top, because let's think about what was fucking fashion 5 years ago. Crop tops were the only fucking shirts you could find at the stores. Like, it's just like so nuts. And I know it's the times, I understand that, but it's also like, you don't sit there and put this young girl's personal fucking life and feelings and insecurities and, you know, like, again, her sex life, like, that's none of your fucking business to be sitting there asking her about if she's still a virgin or not. And then, like,
the audacity.
Exactly.
And then that guy, and he says, so we're going to talk about your breasts.
Yes.
And then he says, you kind of seem to get angry when people bring that up in interviews. I wanted to throw my fucking TV across the room. Like, you are acting surprised that she gets upset that she when she wants. Are you kidding me?
You think it's appropriate to be talking about this right now on fucking national television? Like,
and that would never fly now, ever. No, people would find that person and like
literally put them in jail and beat the shit out of them.
Yeah, like actually, like and like how do you even deal with that? And then once again, you have to be the gracious guest. You can't even call them out on their shit because then you'll be blacklisted from all the rest of the media interviews or whatever it may be, right?
Yep.
So she couldn't even though she was so uncomfortable, she couldn't throw a freaking glass of water at his face.
Oh my God. Watching that, I
got
just looked
so
at her
angry,
and was
like
just
visceral
like,
reaction.
I can't even imagine.
No.
I would have fucking bursted into tears and been like, yeah, I'm out. And she did end up walking off a lot of
especially as time went on. She had less and less patience.
Exactly. And then there was excuse me, that governor of Maryland saying, if I had the opportunity to shoot Britney, I would.
Like, what?
And it's like, pardon me. And then there's also, like, we were talking about, like, parents not letting their kids, like, watch her or, like, be fans of her, thinking how bad of a role model she was and everything. And then it got to the point where she was in an interview and she said, they brought that up to her. Like, what do you say to the parents that think you're such a bad role model? She was like, change the channel.
Exactly.
You don't like what you
I'm
see,
not
then
here
change
to be
the
your
fucking
kid's
channel.
role model.
Exactly. Like what in the actual, like, it's just ridiculous. And then it even went to the point where she felt like she had to say in an interview, you know, I'm going to save my virginity until the night of my wedding, like once I'm married. And then as soon as she said that, in the YouTube series that I watched and I'm still watching, she, like, they go more into detail about that, about her being like, that was the biggest regret I've ever made. I have, because, sorry, excuse me, that opened up the door.
For more comments. Yeah. For more people to actually talk about it. And that's kind of the thing too, is like, you give an inch, people take a mile. So she did talk about it. But again, that was the time. Like, that was literally the time. Like, that... It kind of blows my mind now because people would never talk about those things anymore. But at that time, all of our media, like every magazine that you'd open, it'd be about somebody. Like the Jonas Brothers, they had purity rings, remember? And they talked about how that was a huge regret of theirs too. They said that they regretted that because that's also really screwed up. But that was also kind of the Disney machine as well. And just like, we need to make sure these kids are marketable to kids and that all the moms don't get mad at us for displaying these people.
Exactly.
Like,
because she did kind of start off in the Mickey Mouse Club.
Yeah.
And so
she did.
She was, in a sense, children's icons. I mean, I was in grade 2 when I listened to fucking Britney Spears. Like, I was a child myself. Like, I was very young, and so I can see that, but I never, ever, my parents never once were like, you're not allowed to like this girl because she wears like skimpy clothing. Revealing
clothing. No.
Yeah, exactly.
And also, we weren't really involved in her like interviews and things like that either, right? No. Like, so I didn't see, and like, I never watched those music videos either and realized that they were like inappropriate and I didn't then want to go be that and dress that way. Like it kind of comes down again of people like you're the one who's raising your children. So like either you don't let them watch it or you have discussions with them about it, about why they shouldn't act that way and why this is just for TV or whatever, you know, like it's not up to the people just because she happens to have fans that are young to then completely change everything about her so that you crazy conservative Christian moms can be okay with her. Like it just, it's just like, ugh.
And another side story, I guess. I mean, who's a really good example of that is Miley Cyrus, unfortunately, had to go through that.
Yeah.
Being Hannah Montana. She went through kind of, in a sense, her own, like what Britney went through with the fucking publicity and media tearing apart anything she did adult when she became an adult. Like smoking weed, smoking a cigarette, drinking, whatever. Twerking. Exactly.
But like, it's like as people are just waiting to find that thing to tear people down. Like, and that was kind of the thing with Britney Spears is like, it is something in our psychology as humans is like, we like to see people fall. It's a weird thing. I don't know what it is.
Fucked up.
I don't know if it's because like, it's almost like it's almost put in us because then people can't get too powerful because eventually they'll like kind of get brought down or something. But the fact that we're just so about gossiping and just like we love to build someone up and then as soon as we have a second tear them down, like it's really screwed up. And that's just kind of what happened to her. It's like everybody was just like all on her side, loved her. And then when she kind of needed the support, everyone was just willing to just like turn their backs away and just like say, you're crazy, you screwed up, you're fucked up, whatever. Like, I don't know. It's It's really unfortunate the way we treat people.
Yeah, it's really messed up and really sad, and like I just don't even know. I feel so fucking bad for what she had to, like, how she had to experience what could have been like such an amazing life, and what could have been such an amazing time, and she didn't have the family that fucking supported her and was there for her. It was actually the complete opposite from what I've definitely learned from all this from this YouTube deep dive. Like, it's crazy, dude. Like, it's fucked up how much detail they go into, like, her family's history, background story, and then also like when they decided to be involved, how much they fucking like set her up to have no involvement of her own, of herself, of her life and control. And it's just like super, super sad, so messed up. And
I think, sorry, you can go ahead.
No, it's okay. The one thing I want to say is early on in the Framing Britney documentary, I think it's her assistant Felicia that says it. I could be wrong, but that one of the first things Jamie Spears, her father, ever said to her was, "My daughter's going to be
label people."
Oh, the label people. "My daughter's going to be so rich one day that she will buy me a boat." And this is her when she's 10 or 11 years old. I'm pretty sure. Is that when he said it? Is that when they?
I think maybe more like 16 or so. Yeah, like
that was
her first record deal. Yeah.
Well, because when she was younger, her parents enrolled her. Actually, it was more Lynn, her mother, who enrolled her in anything they possibly could, from like all types of different dance, talent shows, beauty pageants, choir, voice lessons, gymnastics, like push her into all these things because they wanted to make her this star. And she's fucking talented, and she deserves to have and had what she has had and had. The talent and the spotlight she has and the fame she has, because she's a very fucking talented person. But it's almost like her mom was like really just trying to frame her into this fucking famous person and pushing her into that. And that's sad because that's already them having control of her life without her even knowing, because she's so young that she thinks her parents are just, or her mom's just putting her into all these, you know, extracurricular activities. And really, no, they were fucking like in debt a lot. Like, they had a lot of debt. They had a lot of financial issues. This YouTube series goes into how her father was an alcoholic. He was an abusive alcoholic. He and Lynn did not have a good relationship at all. And it was almost like Lynn used Britney as an escape from that life. And again, to help their financial situation. And then him saying that when she's fucking on the way to the top at 16 years old, "My daughter's going to be so rich one day, she's going to buy me a boat." And then what happened at the end of it all, he fucking took control and made sure he got control of all her money. Like, it's just, this was all, her life was all set up for her. And it's just so fucked up, like in a very toxic way. Not in a supporting parent's way of, oh my God, my daughter is so fucking talented. We will do anything we possibly can to make it so she can make her dreams come true.
Even that, like we were saying before, like I automatically now side-eye anybody who put their kids into that type of thing at a young age, because I think it's all motivated by you. Like, your kid, if they're talented, you can wait till they're a little bit older and have the means to actually decide for themselves that they want this lifestyle. Yes. Like, you're the one who's saying, I want this then. Or like, even like the kid, like baby actors, like, you know, like I think about like the Olsen twins, even they were like months old. And like, that's not because they wanted to do it. That's because you wanted them to. And that's 100%. What's really screwed up to me. Like, 100%. And that's the thing, like about like people see kids as like an extension of them. And that's why people will like live vicariously through their children, because that's like almost like mini like, it's a weird thing about our ego. And that's what I kind of think about that is like, she was talented and maybe she liked doing it, but were you actually thinking this is what's in the best interest of my child? This is what they want. This is what's going to be good for them. No, you were thinking, how can I get away from my husband on the weekends? How can I get money? And then he's probably just thinking, I don't care. We're going to make money out of it. Sure. Why not?
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. And think about though, like all the people that have that same situation, but they didn't become Britney Spears.
Yeah.
Like, and that happens way more often than it does. So like, I don't know.
Well, and the YouTube series also got into like the Mickey Mouse Club and how these kids worked 6 months of the year, 9 to 6 days, like a work day, even a little longer because a normal work day is like a 9 to 5. And these kids only made $185 a week. So that's $5 an hour. And we're getting overworked. And 6 months of the year we're working like, and then these children just like, did the money go to them or did it go to their parents? Probably their fucking parents.
Yeah. And that's another thing. Like there's some kind of law in California that, that protects the estates of children because there's so many child actors.
Okay.
But, Mickey Mouse Club was in Orlando. So I'm not sure if that even would apply in Florida.
Yeah.
And I've heard some of them who are in the Mickey Mouse Club talk about it in interviews and stuff, and they would have to go back to their normal lives because obviously that wasn't something that happened all year. And like how crazy that was too, just like the structure being different and like you're kind of treated like you're some big thing, and then you get back to your normal life and you're not, which is a good thing.
Yeah, exactly.
That's a humbling thing.
Yeah.
But then for Britney, she was probably spending all that other time going to dance classes and singing lessons and her parents freaking fighting. And like, who knows what kind of pressure you would even absorb as that child, to, even if maybe she knew on a point of whether she actually consciously knew, but like, I have to do this because my family needs it from me.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, I mean, think about what they said in the Framing Britney documentary. That one year she went back home for Christmas and just handed out $100 bills to everyone and just said like, Merry Christmas, because she was probably,
which is so sweet.
Yeah. Like so sweet and so amazing and like incredible. Like that part of the fucking documentary brought a tear to my eye. So I was like, oh my God, she's just a fucking sweetheart. But there you go. They're alone. Maybe she had that pressure. So knowing that pressure so young about her parents' financial situation, and if she made it, then she know her family would be okay and they'd have money. And then when she did make it, she's like, well, now I want to go back to my hometown, and everyone around there doesn't have a bunch of money, so I just want to go hand out money to everybody because I love them and I care about them and they all could use this $100. I don't need it. Like just I don't know. It's like a good thing but sad at the same time, because it's like she got forced to, I shouldn't say forced, but like her mind was already made up at a young age that she had to do this for the money, or she wouldn't make her family proud, or wouldn't be helping her family out because that's what they needed, right? That's what they're always struggling with. And I'm saying this like I know it, but that's what this YouTube series was actually getting more into, was their background and stuff. So it kind of opened up my eyes to how much the Spears actually were very fucking dirt poor for most of her life until she became Britney Spears. And it's just, again, the end result of it all, just like, it makes me even more mad, because it's like...
Exactly. And to kind of then kind of get into what happened then, so we don't just keep talking about this all day.
Yeah.
But, so then, like you say, that everything was planned and she was set up to be in this position. So and that's the thing that I won't deny, is she probably was going through some personal stuff in terms of partying and drinking, and she just had these 2 children, and like the media is a shitstorm and stuff. And then instead of supporting her and actually getting her help, they saw an opportunity to take all of her money, and that's what's really fucked up. Like really fucked up.
So this one thing that I seen on the YouTube documentary or series was this little clip that she had made. And it was after she got out of rehab because she was told by her mom, Kevin, and manager that she had to do complete rehab treatment. If not, Kevin would take the kids. Mm-hmm. So she did that. And 6 days after she started her rehab treatment, the rehab place leaked info about her latest report. And it said that Britney Spears may not be an out-of-control party animal. Doctors are suggesting that she may in fact be struggling with postpartum depression, and saying that this affects many women following childbirth. Although Britney is checked into a rehab center, her substance abuse problems seem to be secondary to her postpartum depression. And so they start saying that it's a form of postpartum that she has. Mm-hmm. So when she got out of rehab, she had sent her lawyer an email saying that she needed help and all this stuff. And she also put out this video. She was on vacation. It was like this little video, and she was saying like, oh, you know, it's such a nice world we live in. Like, isn't the world so nice? Isn't it so nice, you know? I walk into a place and I'm learning so much about myself. There's a magazine that says I'm pregnant, and I turn to my mom and I say, Did you know I was pregnant? And, you know, the world's just so nice. They'll say things like, you know, I'm drinking, I'm out of control, I'm partying. And yeah, the world is just so nice. They know everything. They're right. So remember, believe everything you read. Believe, like, this very, very sarcastic, obviously, video and voice. And she's also saying, yeah, you know, I needed to go to rehab. It wasn't it wasn't my lawyer and my management and my family forcing me to go. I needed to go. Because I'm crazy. And didn't you read about it? Because the world's so nice and the world knows everything. So believe everything you read. And it was just like super fucked up when I seen this little clip, because I was like, whoa, like this is how she's trying to reach out for, like, I was forced to do all these things, and this was just the beginning. And I don't know, the way it just kind of hit me was like, because you know what, like, I do agree that she probably did have her substance abuse stage or parting stage, but she was a fucking young woman. We all did. Yeah. We all fucking had a party stage in our life. We
just didn't have paparazzi following us.
Just because she's fucking famous doesn't mean she's not allowed to do that.
Exactly.
There's fucking everybody in the world goes through a fucking partying stage, goes through maybe even sometimes a drug phase, a fucking drinking phase. Like, everybody does. So just because she's famous, just because she's followed around by paparazzi, it means she's out of control. She needs to go to rehab. She's having a fucking breakdown. She's going crazy. Like, no, that's fucked up. That's not fucking right. Like, it's sad. And also on top of it all, having that type of a lifestyle, yeah, don't you have a hard day at work and you think, I want a fucking glass of wine after work?
Yeah.
Or I want a fucking hoot, or 3 or 7 or 10. Like,
exactly.
There she is. Maybe she's not working a fucking 9 to 5 every single day, but she has people following her 24/7. So yeah, I'm gonna go get fucked up and numb that pain of people not leaving me alone and having my own privacy. Because then what else is she supposed to do? Lock herself in her house and never leave her house and go into a full-on depression? Even though I do feel like at some point, like when she shaved her head, she obviously was going through a mental health. Whether it was depression, like, who knows?
Yeah.
Nobody knows to this day except for her what was fucking going on in that time. But she was also fighting a custody situation. She was going through a fucking divorce. She was like, you know, like, it's just all the timing that everything was happening. It's just so sad and like breaks my heart. And so when the night that she locked herself in the bathroom, right? You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
So they talked about it on the Framing Britney situation, But they didn't really get into a lot of detail about everything that happened that night. So she had 2 friends there with her. I think one was her cousin or something. And they were saying in this series that one of her kids got out because Kevin showed up to pick them up. And the paparazzi was everywhere. And the cops showed up because she'd locked herself in her house. And apparently she was holding her... They didn't actually say this, but the feeling I got when I was watching this shit was like she was holding her kid hostage or something. Mm-hmm. And that's why they made this big dramatic appearance with all these cops and everything. And it said in this documentary or docuseries that her friends were telling her, stay inside, the cops are leaving. And so that's why she stayed inside. But then all of a sudden, fucking an ambulance shows up, all these other cops show up, and they get a warrant to be able to go into her house to get this kid and get her and bring her out on a stretcher and take her to the hospital for a psyche evaluation. She shows up there, and all of a sudden there's a psyche evaluation set up, and who walks in 45 minutes later is her dad, who at this point she hadn't spoken to in 8 months because her fucking dad, an ex-lawyer, teamed up against her after the shaving the head situation, mm-hmm. and she fired him and her lawyer, and her dad went from saying that she was a sick little girl that needed some help when the shaving the head situation happened to teaming up with her lawyer and saying that everything Britney has said about him, he is false. The Spears family is on his side. And so then she fucking separated herself and was like, I can't be with, like, my family isn't supporting me. He's like, so then he was there, and that's when the shit started. That's when they started setting up yes. So then this Lou Taylor chick started teaming up with her dad, who Lou Taylor is a attorney. Mm-hmm. And she got involved and started manipulating Jamie Spears into this conservatorship. And so apparently she attempted to do this with Lindsay Lohan in 2010. Mm-hmm. And so she bailed her out of jail when Lindsay Lohan went to jail. And she formulated this plan with Lindsay's mother to take over her finances and healthcare for an indefinite amount of time. And so then she tried to convince her mother to seek conservatorship over her estate. And so then the series says, but her parents would have never been granted it. So this Lou Taylor seeked out Larry Rudolph, who is the ex-attorney for Britney Spears, and got her and tried to get him to team up with her to get this conservatorship from Lindsay Lohan, or over Lindsay Lohan. But her dad fought against it and stood up for her and was like, no, like, this fucking Lou Taylor and her mom are just trying to get hands on her money, and it's not happening. I'm not letting this happen. Mm-hmm. So he, like, told Lindsay, like, brought to her attention that they were trying to put her in rehab. So Lou Taylor convinced her mother that she needed to go to rehab after she got out of jail. And so while she was in rehab, they were going to start the paperwork for the conservatorship, because that shows that she's weak. It shows that she has problems. It shows that she's crazy and she can't have control of her own well-being and life and money and everything. And her dad was like, no, and put an end to that. So the reason they brought Lindsay Lohan up is because, I mean, Lou Taylor was also involved in Britney Spears, but comparing that Lou Taylor and fucking Jamie Spears teamed up, and that's what they did. So they put her in the psych evaluation and then put her in involuntary hold in the hospital. Mm-hmm. And while they did that, they started setting up all the paperwork. Yeah. And went to the courts and started getting that all going. And she fucking hired, and I know this was in the Framing Britney, so she hired that lawyer, Adam, Adam something, and he was going to represent her. And then he did.
Wasn't able to.
But then wasn't able to because the attorney that Jamie Spears wanted to be representing her, who was on their side, and the judge was on the fucking Jamie Spears side, and fucking all these people. Like, dude, it's so crazy. And through these trials, she was still in this involuntary hold.
Yeah, I know. And that's this. I know.
She was kept there until the doctor said, like, we have done evaluations on her and she is fine. She is fucking completely fine. She can speak for herself. She's good. And her parents were pissed off because they let her out so early. Because they wanted to get, her dad, I don't know about Lynn. Lynn confuses me. I'm very, like, I don't know how much, like, Lynn, I don't know. I'm not done this YouTube series. So that's the issue. But I
feel like she's not as, like, bad as Jamie, but she also does have some sketchy, like, I don't know. Like, some of her intentions, I think, are still kind of sketchy at times. So, but I agree. And that's the thing, like, is that this was all planned. Like, they would have had this all planned, and this is when we're going to hold her, and then this is when we're going to start. You can scramble on stuff, but these things take time to do your, like, court documents and get all your shit in a row. Like, they planned this out. And that's what's really screwed up about it. Like, everything about that was planned.
And so they said that, and also they didn't give her the 5-day period that they're supposed to before the trial happened. So she could find her own, once they didn't let her have the first attorney, so she could find her own attorney. Like, they took away these rights from her before he had the conservatorship. Like, so much of her by being in this involuntary hold in this hospital, and it's just like, it's so fucked up. And he was saying that it was for her safety, that she needs to stay in the hospital, because if she were to get out, then who knows what she would do. She could hurt herself and everything. But when he was granted the temporary conservatorship, he had control to secure her. He had, because that's what you do. You have all that control. So he could have got her security. He could have made sure she was okay. But no, he wanted her in that hospital. So then the case
so she couldn't stop it.
Exactly. And so that the case looked even better on his end of why he needs to be
exactly.
Right? And
because on paper, it's kind of hard to not say, oh, she does need help when she's being in a hold.
Exactly.
So, and that's why it was all orchestrated. And that's how those, like, it's called forms here. And it's like, you start with, like, a small window, and then they decide whether or not they can let you out, or whether you should have an increased one. And I do think that those holds are there for a reason. And I think that when they need to be used, it's a good thing that they're there. But it just really sucks that when you don't need it, there's really nothing you can do about it, because it's kind of there for a reason, and they just took advantage of the whole entire thing. And I can't imagine how that felt for her, being, like, held involuntarily, knowing it's like they're saying you're crazy. You know you're not crazy. What do you even do? And the feelings that would be happening inside of you do make you feel crazy. Like, you're like, I'm so helpless right now. There's nothing I can do. Nobody believes me. Like, what's going on right now? Like, what is this world that I'm living in? What is real? What is fake? Like, I can't imagine. That would literally make you feel crazy, even if you didn't have those things. And I'm not calling people crazy. Like, that's not what I'm saying. But, like, I just can't imagine being in that position. I feel so bad for her. And it was all fucking orchestrated.
They
planned everything about it.
Yep, they did. And sorry, I fucked up the timeline. It wasn't she didn't get into that involuntary hold when she locked herself in the house. That wasn't the right time. But
that was part of the narrative to get there, probably.
Yes, it was. Yeah, 100%. It's because they were actually wanting to get her away from that Sam, whatever his last name
Lutfi.
Yes. And that whole situation.
That guy's sketchy as fuck, though.
Yeah, he's super sketchy.
He genuinely is. Yeah.
I kind of feel like I agree with her family on that end of him not being involved, but they still went about it very fucking messed up. They set up this, like, intervention, and they got the LAPD and the fire department a part of it and set up this night where they were going to come to her house and take her again for another psych evaluation, and that's when the involuntary hold started. And so they set up this intervention that she came into. They said they didn't want him around her. She was he wanted all the control of her, blah 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 blah. And she didn't listen, and a couple days later they called into TMZ, and they said that her family came barging in and were jealous of Sam because she doesn't want them in her life anymore because her and her family aren't on good terms. And then I think it was a couple days later, they planned this fucking, the cops and the fire department showing up and taking her, and they did that. And then she got forced into this involuntary hold. And then again, that's where it all started. And it's just like, so like not once, but twice she was fucking set up into these situations of being called crazy and having like the media on her during these times that her family, and I also feel like her family and fucking Kevin Federline had, you know, some kind of fucking...
They were in cahoots.
Yeah, exactly. Like I also feel like he and Jamie Spears had some kind of fucking like, let's team up on her kind of thing.
Well, they knew that the children were something that would actually hurt
her. Exactly.
And that's what they kind of said, is that if you agree to this, if this happens, then you'll be able to see your kids.
Yeah,
that's all that she wanted to do.
Yeah, exactly. And so that's why she went to rehab.
So they were using that against her.
Yeah, and
exactly.
Then all of a sudden, when she was put into this involuntary hold, her dad would come to the hospital, and that's what he talked to her about. Well, do you want me to help you get your kids back? Because I'm the only one that can. Because I have the conservatorship. Or I'm the conservator. Sorry. And so then he like manipulated her. And so she said, okay, I just have to fucking agree to it because, and that's what they said, even when she got out of the hospital and found another lawyer and talked to him, he said she was just at the point where, you know what, it is what it is. I just have to accept it because I want to see my kids. Like, oh my God, it's just like so fucking crazy.
But I was talking to you before too, I just hate it because it's like he wasn't really involved. They clearly weren't all that close.
No.
And then it's like, oh, the patriarch of the family is coming to step in and make things right. He's going to take over everything. And
yeah, because he wasn't around. He wasn't around until she shaved her head.
Exactly. And so everyone just being okay with that too. Like maybe if she did require this kind of intervention and this assistance and conservatorship, whatever, then why didn't someone say it shouldn't be her dad? Because she doesn't
Lindsay
even like her
Lohan's
dad.
Said that. He said that about her was, you know what, if we do need to get a conservator, it's going to be somebody who looks at you as a fucking human being, who isn't wanting it just for your money and to take advantage of your money, but wants to help you. Because right now, Lou Taylor and your mom
professionally, essentially.
Only care about the money. And that's just that's the part that just hurts me for her the most, is how much her family wasn't doing it for her and her best interest and her well-being. Maybe at some points it kind of seemed like they were, again, when I'm trying to get her away from Sam, but really that was just to get more control over her. And it's just like, it's so sad. It's so fucked up, and it's just like this YouTube series has really gotten me like on a fucking spiral of just...
That's the part that I really feel like kind of shows Jamie's intentions as well, is because everybody in the world is looking at you and what you're doing. So if you didn't have bad intentions, would you not say, okay, you know what, this does look sketchy, I'm going to step back and I'm going to let someone else do this because she actually needs this. So if you don't want me doing it, at least we're going to, you know, like... That's the thing. And I'm not saying people should be doing it for the public eye, because that's one thing I will say about this whole thing, is that the only thing she really has is her privacy. So if there are parts about it that we don't know and that we're not entitled to know, I don't want to know them, because that's her private life.
Yeah, I agree.
But at the same time, like, clearly this is fucking sketch. Like, what you're doing, the way you've taken over things. And so then make it seem like you're doing the right thing and step aside. Like, because now he's not conservator of her person, which I think is probably best. Like, I'm not saying that he should be conservator of her estate, but at least I think, like, money wise is a little bit different than her person. But like you and I have talked, we don't know who he's paying to then be the conservator of her person and then still like doing out his agenda essentially, right? Like that's the thing that's just really sketchy. And like, I think that's what I think is what freaked them out so much, is that the Sam Lutfi guy clearly has a lot of sketchiness to him. Yeah. But if maybe he was telling her, spend your money, whatever, I think that they saw it as like, that's a piece of us. If something happens to you, then we're not going to get our inheritance. We're not going to get our portion. Yes. You're not going to have these trusts open for us, like, because you're cutting into our money instead of your money. Yes. And she had enough money to go and spend frivolously and still have enough to cover everybody if that was the case. And they saw that and they were like, this isn't okay. We want our money. This is, you know, or whatever. And I'm sure that there's other things that we don't know about, like maybe some crazy things happened in terms of what she was doing and how she was acting, and not crazy, I mean, like, but just like bad shit, whatever. We don't know everything, but I don't know. And like this Sam Lutfi guy, he was also connected to Lindsay Lohan, and he was connected to Courtney Love during her breakdown. Like, this guy has an MO. Yeah, dude, he has a fucking MO. And he always says he's being a mediating manager. So that's why he started hanging out with Britney Spears, is he said that he could bring the conflict down between her and her family. And he would be the one. God. And he says, like, I'm really skilled in these things. Like, I have a lot of skills in terms of bringing people together. And so he did that with her. And then her parents took out the restraining order against him. And so he had to back off. But apparently there's a whole bunch of stuff. Like, at one point, somebody he met on MySpace, this guy he met, he said the same thing, like, I can help turn your life around. And then eventually the guy borrowed money. He borrowed money from the guy. They had an altercation. So this guy had a restraining order against him. The guy, the Sam Lutfi then sent out nude photos of this guy to his friends and family members. He had real estate agents have restraining orders against him. He claims to have gone to some big university that says that he's definitely not an alumni. Like, this guy is fucking sketch. And I think that he sees vulnerable women and knows that he can get and seed himself in there, because Lindsay Lohan, it happened. They have a restraining order against him. Courtney Love, for a while there, when all this was first happening in terms of Britney Spears, she was kind of like putting out statements saying, oh no, he's amazing. But she has since filed a restraining order against him. Like, he definitely is sketchy, and definitely has some. It sounds like him and this Lou Taylor chick have a lot in fucking common, because that's what they're saying about this Lou Taylor. They see this type of person and how they can manipulate it. Yes, 100%. And apparently this Lou Taylor chick was fucking like sending Britney things in the mail and like being a fucking like scaring her. Like, that was what she sent her letter to her lawyer that she ended up firing, was saying, like, this Lou Taylor person is like stalking me. She's pretending to be my mom. Jesus. She's telling me I need to follow the light, telling me she wants to come and protect me from the demons and all this shit. And then in the long run ends up teaming up with this fucking lawyer against Lindsay Lohan, or Lindsay Lohan's situation. And then later on fucking teaming up with Jamie Spears. And, you know, like, it's super They see the opportunity. Super, like, fucked. And they know. And, like, that's so messed up, because you're, like, unfortunately, there's a line between, like, someone is stalking me and then you sounding paranoid. And, like, that could have been part of the whole thing, too. Is, like, make her seem like she's paranoid and that people are following her and that they're trying to make her out to be this person that she's not. And it's like, oh, poor Britney, like, you're just a little paranoid. You don't know what's going on right now, but we all have your back. We all have your best interests at heart. Like, that's what's really screwed up, like, really, really screwed up. And they know, because they know the law, and they know that this is something that you have to, like, eventually get into. And that's her, where she's at right now, is that, so to end a conservatorship, you can have the conservator and then a bunch of other people, like professionals. If everyone says, yes, this should be ended, then the courts can grant it. So the first step is to get Jamie removed so that then they can bring in a different conservator who will then hopefully agree to remove the conservatorship.
Right.
And then hopefully she can get out of this mess. And so that's why she hasn't petitioned to even have it removed. It's always been about removing her dad because that's the first step.
Right. And how many times she voiced she didn't want it to be her dad.
Yes. And that's the thing. That's the thing that drives me fucking crazy. And that's where it comes into is that like disabled people and handicapped people, they should have a right to say, and maybe you don't have the ability to know whether you need it. That's a different conversation. Yes. But then if you are saying, I do not want this person, then that person should not be the person who's doing it. Like, it should, and there should always be like a third party, a neutral third party who has no skin in the game, who's overseeing these things and making sure that it's being done appropriately. Because, and like someone might say, oh, who knows her better than her family? And it's like, no, clearly that's not true.
No, because
not everybody's families has their best interest at heart.
Yeah, because since the beginning, they've been using her to fucking get out of a financial situation.
Exactly.
Seriously. I honestly... Like, full-heartedly believe
how
that.
You feel, and yeah, exactly. No, and it sounds that way, and that's even kind of what they were sort of hinting at in the documentary too. Like, it's like this was an escape, and even when they're having marital problems, that's how she got away from Jamie on the weekends, and he wanted the money and the power and the control, and she was just used as a pawn. And then all of a sudden, because she was older and could do those things, then they didn't want that anymore because they didn't have control over it. So then this is how they got control.
Exactly. Like, oh, it's just so crazy. It's so crazy, and I just like I could talk about this for fucking hours and hours and hours, honestly, and I'm not even done this fucking YouTube series. Seriously, like, honestly, I could, but like, I don't want to continue repeating what we've said or going back to the same points, but I definitely thought that, and we both did because we talked about it, that this would be something really cool to talk about on the podcast. Kind of got lost in the sauce a little bit. You know, I wrote all these notes. I don't know if I actually said them exactly how I wanted to say them, if I even said them in the proper order. I was actually, for once, very organized for this episode, but I get so heated and so lost in like the moment and conversation that's why I was like, wait a minute, that's not the right time frame. That wasn't the right time frame. So hopefully I'm not like sounding like a fucking brain melt in this episode. But I just thought we both thought it was something that needed to be talked about. Not that it's not being talked about. I mean, there are so many fucking people out there.
It's a delicate topic, but I feel really, really bad for her. And
me too.
She's so talented. She had it all. And that's the thing is like maybe she did make some mistakes, but everybody is entitled to be able to grow and learn from their mistakes, and she hasn't been able to. And there was, at one point after the conservatorship was pretty new, like I think this was like 2008 or 2009, she said in an interview, the only interview that they talked about, that she was able to talk about it, is she said that it's like being in jail, but it's worse than jail because at least when you're in jail, you know when you'll be out.
Oh my
and
God.
That tells you right there how she was feeling about it.
God.
And it's like 12 years
later. That just
later.
made my stomach fucking sink.
I know.
Oh my God.
I know.
That is so fucking sad.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my God, that's so fucking sad. Like,
I know.
Oh, I hate that. I hate that.
And this is the reality that some people are living. Like, and it's not just her. There's other people out there too. Like, people who are trapped under other people's influence. And unfortunately, that's just like how some people like to control everything about others. And that's how they get off, is controlling things about people. And it's just really sad. And like she probably, even if she got out of it, like that would be very traumatic, and to have to like retrain yourself that like I have the ability to do what I want. I can make my own decisions.
At the end of the day, she's like a victim.
Yeah.
Like 150%. She is a fucking victim. And now has this fucking trauma if she fully gets out of it, that she has to deal with for the rest of her life. And so much of her life's been taken away from her. She still has a lot of life left. Don't get me wrong. She still has a lot of fucking life left. But like a lot of her has been taken away from her. And that's just really sad. Yeah, it's a crazy situation. And I just really hope that she becomes fully free one day.
Yeah. And there's more court dates coming up. And she just had a win because they said that she now has this bank that's also going to be overseeing the conservator of her estate, which, you know, I think that this is all in steps and stages. And her current lawyer, I think they do have a plan. Like, and I think that's why people get frustrated is they're like, why isn't it happening fast enough? But unfortunately, this is like a whole thing that has to be untwined. Yeah. And it is. It's the courts. It's like you... And that's the thing is that in certain cases, people legitimately require this. And it shouldn't be easy for them to just throw it away because sometimes you don't know that you need it. But in this case, this has been like 12 years. Like let's just, it's just so sad. It is so freaking sad. And her kids are grown up now too. Like,
I know.
That's the other thing is like, in terms of if that's what they were trying to protect, well, they're old enough now. And who knows like what she's lost in terms of that, of being able to actually be there as a mother, you know, and that's just really, really sad to me too.
It is really sad. And I think if there is one thing, if not many things we can take away from this whole situation is that you don't know everybody's story.
No.
You don't know what is happening with people behind closed doors, whether it's personally or within their family or their relationship or whatever it may be. And you can't judge somebody until you know the full story. And like you said, dude, there's things we don't know and maybe we'll never know because that is her privacy. But with a lot of stuff that has come out of the woodwork since this whole movement, since this whole situation has really been like brought back to light and brought back to people's attention, there is so much behind the story that we don't know that's what her dad and family has done to fucking abuse the situation and take advantage of, and that's sad and horrible. And we just, you know, and it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if it's a famous person. It doesn't matter if it's just your everyday Joe. Like, you need to realize people are going through their own struggle and through their own thing. And you may see someone do something weird and for a second think, they're crazy. But you also need to stop and think, well, wait, what's happening in their life that's making them act that way? That's making them move that way. And I don't mean, you know, fucking bad people out there, because there's also bad people that's different. That's a different situation, but it's just, we should try our hardest not to be so quick to judge, not to jump to conclusions, not to call people crazy, because look at how much we all sat there and said, oh, I'm going to have a 2007 Britney moment. And now we know
that's not okay to say.
That is not okay to fucking say at all. You know, I don't know if I've ever actually like really said that out of my own mouth, but I know I've laughed at it. I know I've been like, oh my God, yeah, she went crazy. And I feel really fucking shitty. And I already talked about this, and Thomi and I have already talked about this, but I feel very fucking shitty for even laughing at those jokes or everything, agreeing to somebody when they said, exactly, because she was fucking struggling and was having a hard fucking time. And it's just...
And people just turned her into a punchline. Including her ex-boyfriend.
Exactly. Exactly. And we didn't even get into him being a fucking fuckface.
No, we couldn't even touch on everything.
I know. Like I said, I fucking put pages of notes and thing. Like, it is. It's a lot, but yeah, I think that's probably all we got time for. We went on about this for a pretty hot minute. I don't know. You guys send in, you guys send in what you your feelings about the situation, what you thought about the documentary. If you're watching the YouTube series, I'd love to hear about what you guys have to say, what you think, what you believe, what you feel. It's just definitely something that I'm pretty fucked up over, I'm not gonna lie. And fucking free Britney, and we love you, Britney.
Leave Britney alone.
Leave Britney alone. We fucking love you, Britney.
All right. Bye, guys. Well, thanks for listening.
Yeah. Thank you for coming on the pod, dude. And everyone stay safe, stay healthy, stay positive. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. I'll talk to you guys soon. We'll talk to you soon. Bye.
Bye.